Hello, Mighty Ducks. Welcome everyone to tonight's virtual event featuring leaders and students innovating on the business side of sports. While many of you are very familiar with the brilliance of our women's and men's sports teams, as we just saw, tonight we are focusing our attention on the world-class sports business education at the University of Oregon. Hi, I'm Schmidt-Devlin, the Executive Director of the Lundquist College of Business, Portland programs. I'm a former U of O track and field runner, 800, 1500, who was coached by both longtime coach Tom Heineman and legendary coach Bill Bowerman, who happened to also be my first boss at Nike. After a 27-year career at Nike, I joined the University of Oregon 8 years ago. As your moderator tonight, I have the privilege to introduce the real talent behind the brilliance of sports education at the University of Oregon. At the end of the presentations, it will be your turn to ask questions. We'll answer those questions that you put into the Q&A section of Zoom. So let's get ourselves started. First, I'd like to introduce Shelly Gourlay. Shelly is the director of the Sports Product Management programs in Portland. She spent over 20 years searching the globe for talent to fill roles in the sports product industry as a recruitment leader for companies like Nike and Columbia. In her current role, she is now preparing the talent to enter the industry. Shelly loves working with the students in both the Portland-based programs. The Portland-based program is the face-to-face program, as well as the online SPM program. And nothing makes her happier than seeing the impact that those students are making in the industry. Next up, I'd like to introduce Craig Leone, who is the MBA program manager at the Warsaw Sports Marketing Center in Eugene. He's currently in his 8th season with the program. Craig is responsible for the day-to-day student experiences of the Warsaw Center. Prior to joining the University of Oregon, you may know Craig as a part of the athletic department staff at Ohio University. We won't talk about Ohio University, before relocating to Eugene to pursue a professional running career, where he spent 10 plus years. He made 3 Olympic trials, marathons, and he was a top finisher at the world major marathon events. His favorite part of the role with the Warsaw Center is getting to work directly with students who are driven to make an impact on the ever-evolving sports industry. Thank you, Craig. I'm going to ask you just to tell us a little bit more about the Warsaw Sports Marketing Program.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Ellen, for that introduction. It's great to be here this evening, and thanks to everyone who took time out of their day to join us. So as Ellen mentioned, I work here with the Warsaw Sports Marketing Center. We're in Eugene on the campus of the University of Oregon, and really, we're the brainchild of a true visionary in the sports industry, Jim Warsaw. So over 25 years ago now, in 1993, Jim Warsaw founded the Warsaw Center because he recognized there is a need for the industry to evolve, a need for more than just former athletes who were now transitioning into roles, who really were trained in business fundamentals. And so out of that has spawned 25 years of what I think has been truly world-class sport business education. And, you know, it's fun to have seen the industry evolve, this program evolve with it. We've come a long way from slapping logos out in left field, and we're certainly into this digital age now where, you know, it truly needs top-minded business leaders, and that's part of what we do here at the Warsaw Center. In part of the pivot of the last 8 months or so with COVID, you know, a focus of our program has always been on the global sport industry. And it's been fun to see this still live its and run its course through Zoom over partnerships with Amsterdam University, as an example. We did a collaboration week with them where students from our program, both the undergrad program and the MBA program, were able to connect with students from the University of Amsterdam and hear from companies and executives who were pivoting their organizations in the time of COVID. So executives from Coca-Cola, the U.S. Olympic Committee, IACS, the USATF, all came and spoke to students. And then a great experience out of that was an opportunity for the students to then work on a small case study and actually work collaboratively amongst the two programs. So we've been involved in global education now for 25 years, and it's been fun to see these things not just survive COVID, but also thrive. And looking forward to sharing more of those throughout the night.
Great. Thank you so much, Craig. Shelly, why don't you tell us a little bit more about the Sports Product Management Program?
I would love to. So the Sports Product Management Program is 5 years old as opposed to 25 years old. It's actually the brainchild of Dr. Ellen Schmidt-Devlin, who is on the screen here with us, and Dr. Roger Best. Some years ago, the College of Business asked Ellen and Roger to identify what the sports product industry, so the sports industry as sports as an activity and as a professional endeavor is one thing, and then there is a massive industry around the creation of products for athletes, professional and otherwise. And that's where I had spent a lot of my my life before coming here. And what Ellen and Roger discovered is that industry was looking for students with a business education to have an understanding of what product creation processes were, and so that they could manage the business of product creation. So in 2015, that program was launched, and with about 37 students in the first cohort, we this fall welcomed 76 students to the class of 22. So the program is an 18-month-long multidisciplinary. We handle courses from a lot of different disciplines because the product creation process is made up of a lot of different disciplines. But our students do graduate with a Master of Science in Sports Product Management. This coming March, we'll graduate another 46 students, and that's going to pump us up to about 200 graduates out there with a Master of Science in Sports Product Management. So we're very proud of that. Our business was founded on this particular program was founded on 3 principles. So as Craig mentioned, global is a big part of what we do. And our students participate in a lot of different activities, including 2 international trips and internships. We also have, among our other pillars, our innovation, which seems obvious in this world of product creation, but also sustainability. So we educate our students through experiential opportunities in our innovation lab and through internships. And yes, those things were impacted by COVID.
All right, thank you, Shelly. You both mentioned the current situation, and obviously we've all witnessed the many challenges that have been faced by the sports industry. We're missing our sports and now watching, and trying to understand why Notre Dame has played 9 games and we've only played 4. So it's had a big impact on the sports industry, and it's also had a huge impact on the university. I'm really curious on how it has changed your programs. Craig, let's have you talk about it first.
Yeah, I think as Ellen mentioned, it's had an impact on everyone's life, sport or not, and certainly has impacted how we deliver our experience for our students. And it was a challenge, back in the spring to pivot as we went from winter term into spring term so quickly. But I'm proud of our students who really are resilient, and you'll hear from them later. Just two of our students in each program, because they were the ones that could have kind of thrown in the towel a little bit and said, "Hey, I'm just going to ride this out." But here they are, in a lot of cases thriving throughout the pandemic. For us, it impacted our ability. And Shelly mentioned this, we do so much experiential where we're out visiting companies, doing corporate site visits, both in Portland, the Pacific Northwest, but also other places in the US and all over the world. Those things have not been happening, obviously. And so we've been able to pivot, move things virtually, maybe expand some of the opportunities that students would normally get, in a non-COVID environment, where we've engaged with new companies that we wouldn't necessarily have visited in the past. As an example of that, we had an opportunity to participate in a case competition some students did with Brooks Running, based out of Seattle. And I'd love to kick it to Braden, because Braden is a sophomore student here at the University of Oregon, and the undergrad student in our Warsaw Sports Business Club. Braden is an example of someone who actually, has really been resilient during this time. He participated in both the Amsterdam week in the summer and also this case competition with Brooks Sports. So Braden, I'll kick it to you to introduce yourself. But just so everyone knows, we have Oregonians that go to the University of Oregon. I know a lot of Californians make up the student population, but Braden, holding it down for Portland. I'll kick it to you, Braden.
Yeah, thanks for the introduction, Craig. Yeah, I'll just start with a little bit about myself too. Like Craig said, I'm from Portland and very proud of it. But yeah, I'm a sophomore sports business and economics major. And kind of for me, the reason that I love Warsaw so much is that I love like the power of sport and the fact that it's such a big platform to, build community and make change and all that stuff. And I feel like the community thing is part of what we've been able to get out of COVID that we weren't able to get before. It's like Craig said, it's not just getting through this time, it's about thriving with the new situation that we live in right now. So yeah, I did both the Amsterdam University Course Collab and the Brooks Running Competition. So I'll talk about Amsterdam first. But basically what it was is, for a week, we had speakers for a couple hours in the mornings. And we heard, like Craig said, it's from people like the United States Olympic Committee, USA Track and Field, or the global sponsorship team at Coca-Cola. And then we also did small group projects. There were a couple of University of Oregon students with a couple of students from Amsterdam University working on like a real life case competition around a global sport problem and how to get out of the pandemic using sport and that kind of thing. But it was really cool because it's like what Craig and everybody else have been saying. It's not just getting through the pandemic, it's taking advantage of it to do things that we weren't able to do otherwise. And we were able to work with students from Amsterdam, all the way across the world, that we would never have met otherwise because of this and because of Zoom and all that stuff. So yeah, that was a really cool opportunity. And then I also did the Brooks Running case competition, which just wrapped up last week. Basically what it was is we launched on a Zoom call with 16 of our club undergrad students and a few of the executives from Brooks. And they gave us a real problem prompt, something that they're trying to work on right now and figure out what to do. And they kind of instructed us to do interviews and market research and that sort of thing. And then they left it up to us for what conclusions to make from our research. So we had 2 weeks to do the research and come up with conclusions. And then we presented our research last week to several of their leaders. And then the winning presentation, which I was on that team, is going to be presented to their CEO pretty soon. So that was pretty cool knowing that, work that I participated in is going to make its way to the CEO of a big running company. Yeah, so those are just the really cool opportunities that we get to do as part of Warsaw, and especially during COVID. So, especially during COVID when classes are online and everything, the extracurriculars, which are part of what make the University of Oregon and Warsaw so unique, become the most important thing. They're more important than ever. With classes virtual and everything and campus closed, you got to take advantage of the fun extra opportunities, which to me, that's what Warsaw is. And that's the best part of being a Duck, the community you get from all that sort of thing. So I'll be around later for questions as well, or feel free to ask me anything in the chat too. But yeah, I'll kick it back over to Ellen here so she can keep going.
Great, thanks Braden and Craig, excellent. Shelly, tell us a little bit about what sports product management programs are doing as it relates to COVID-19.
Love to. First thing is Craig brought up that PTSD of when right before spring break, everything shut down. And that happened to be 2 days before our graduation of our class of 20. So in addition to flipping all of our courses to online, we also needed to turn our commencement, which is a very big deal. This is a tough program, but switch that from in-person to a hybrid model. And then we realized we had to be virtual. And once we survived that, then we could look at, oh my gosh, we've got a week to get ready for spring term and be ready to present to our class of 21 their courses. And that's the class that Alex is in. Oh, it was crazy, not gonna lie about that. And I think that we will all probably have the psychological scars of that kind of a quick transition. We were fortunate in that the sports product management program actually exists in 2 modes. So we have an in-person Portland-based program that Alex is a member of. And then in April of 2019, we launched an online version of our degree for people who are working full-time. And in April of 2019, we launched on Zoom. And so one thing that our instructors and our program administration was used to was the utilization of Zoom. Now we're more than used to it, but that allowed us to actually make that transition. We immediately began learning that the 2 biggest impacts for us related to COVID were our ability to travel internationally. And Alex and her cohort in the fall were expecting to travel internationally. So that's one thing that we cannot change. They won't allow us to fly to Vietnam. We're not going to be able to do that. So traveling internationally was a big deal. But the 2 things that we could approach were how we would deal with lab experiences. So our students spend their first year in 2 days a week in a lab with hands-on experiential learning on the process of product creation. And while Alex's cohort would be returning to their second year, we were also welcoming these 76 students coming in both of our modes, online and Portland-based, expecting lab. So transitioning lab to something that could be managed online was important. And then in addition, we were also learning that our global internships, of which we normally have 10 to 20, were evaporating. We were not going to be able to send our students overseas. In addition to some of our major partners domestically were not feeling comfortable accepting students in their workplace. So our team, including our head of industry engagement, Marielle von Rangel, who's not with us today, but she did all the heavy lifting here, managed to, around internships, transition to a bunch of new brands that we had not worked with before, and some of our long-standing partners, asking them to provide project opportunities to our students that could be conducted remotely. And so Alex is going to talk to you about that. And regarding our lab experience, what we realized is that our twice a week in person, all 50 students in a cohort in the lab was not a mode that was going to work any longer. So we identified a way to keep our students safe, keep it down to a group of 15 or less with their instructors. And instead of meeting twice a week, they meet once a week. And the interesting thing about this experience is that our instructors do not want to return to our former structure. They feel strongly that our students' learning experience is much richer in this more concentrated, shorter amount of time, but they get much more time with the machinery in the lab and with the lab instructors themselves than was possible in the past. So back to the internships. The internships ended up being, we have something close to 10 new partners that we haven't worked with before. And in early June, Nike came up with 7 internships in their retail marketing organization that they actually sent to us directly because of the COVID experience. And one of the students who was selected for that internship is Alex Grant. And Alex came to us with a background in fashion and marketing to pursue this graduate degree. She also happens to have been a collegiate basketball player, and she's one of my favorite students. Welcome, Alex.
Thanks, Shelly. Super grateful to be here today. Again, my name is Alex, and I'm from Lincoln, Nebraska, just to give a little background on that, but as Shelly mentioned, COVID really kind of disrupted maybe a little bit on how we normally go about this program. And beginning of the summer, I actually moved back home, and I was home for about a week before I got the email for the Nike internship. And I was blessed to have the opportunity that brought me back to Portland for that internship. And as soon as I got back to Portland, it was kind of this snowball effect. I got the Nike internship, and then I had these other opportunities that came my way. So I actually became very busy and had 2 other internships as well. So for a total of 3 internships. So super blessed. And I kind of just took it as an opportunity to do as much as I could, since I wasn't having the opportunity to, get the full, class and school experience as we would due to COVID. So I'll kind of just touch on 2 of those internships that I had. The first one is Nike. And within that role, I worked for the brand marketing product management function of Nike as an inventory specialist. So what that role consisted of, it was me working with the marketing samples for a specific category. Each of the 7 interns, as Shelly mentioned, we were all specified to a specific category. So I worked with the women's category. So my day-to-day was creating standards of organization, managing the samples to and from photo shoots, different photo shoots, just knowing where they're going, when they're coming back, what is actually going to be out. And then also just creating a digital inventory, which was something that was very new to Nike. They hadn't been doing that in the past. So that was great to just really be a part of that. We did not get the traditional Nike internship experience from what I've heard, but it was still really great. And I really, really enjoyed being a part of that experience. We did get to be on campus, so that was really great. And, getting to work with the product hands-on was really awesome there. And then I also had the opportunity to intern for Common Brand. It's a digital content creative agency here in Portland. And within that role, I helped with the creative direction. So that was, handling briefs and photo shoots and video shoots, and really sort of adapting to what a traditional in-person experience would be for the digital world. So an example, Sneaker Week, which is something that's fairly new to the Portland area. And it's just a week of just everything sneakers, obviously, because, of Nike headquarters. And we really had to take such a great hands-on experience and make it digital, and really make it so that the users were very much involved and really could experience that from afar. So it's just been a really good, I would say I had a really, really great summer, and just all the opportunities that came my way. And it really just came from, as Shelly mentioned, our connections with the different companies and different brands here in Portland. And honestly, without that, I probably would have been still at home, and maybe still at home continuing my classes online, but it brought me back to Portland. So I'm super grateful and super thankful for that. And it's just been really great.
Super. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Shelly. So I have some questions. I'll start with the students, and then I'll have a few questions for Craig and Shelly as well. And then for all of you out there on the webinar, it's your turn as well. So any question that you put into the Q&A section, we'll be trying to answer for you tonight. So don't hesitate to put your questions in there. But I'll get us started with the questions. Braden and Alex, I think that we could probably safely say that you had no idea that your education would look like this. We're kind of in the middle of the COVID moment, but maybe by the time you graduate, we'll be in our new normal. It's kind of a 2-part question. What do you look forward to in the new normal? And what do you look forward to not ever having to do again? And I will have Braden go first, because he may want to say Zoom. It's okay if you both have the same answer. So Braden, what do you look forward to in the new normal? And then what do you look forward to saying goodbye to in the new normal as well? So Braden, let's have you speak to us.
Oh, that is a great question. Honestly, personally, I really like Zoom because it allows us to do a lot of things that we couldn't do before. I think I'll need a solid 6 or 8 month break from it after COVID, but then once that's over, I'll be able to get back onto it. And what was the other question?
So as we move to this new normal, what are you going to take forward with you? I mean, what part of what you've learned, and I mean, how do you see yourself different? How do you see education different? Or do you
Gotcha.
see it different?
I think that I'm definitely more willing to leverage the internet to reach out to people randomly. Informational interviews and connecting with people in the industry. And, that's part of why Warsaw is so great too, because we have such an incredible alumni network that you can reach out to people and they'll just connect back with you. And then because you have the common Warsaw connection, they would love to get on a Zoom and just talk. With COVID, people working from home and on Zoom all day anyways, I was able to do so many informational interviews over the summer just by looking for people that were Warsaw alumni. And that was really great. So I'll definitely keep doing that moving forward.
That's great. Thanks, Braden. Yeah. Alex.
I think one thing that I'm looking forward to once we get back to normal is just I'm really very much into creative direction and art direction. And I mentioned that with one of my internships. And because of COVID, staff has been very minimized when we're on set and on site for these shoots. So that's definitely one thing, is like being able to have your full creative team. Just from one-on-ones that I've had from other creatives who do similar work, a lot of art direction is done via Zoom. So just being able to be on person and be able to really like direct, and do that and be able to see it, I think is going to go, just be able, I think, to bring us back up to where we were. Not saying that it's brought us down by any means, but I just think being able to, you just missing a little bit when you're on Zoom. And then I think one thing that I'll try to implement, I think if I remember the question, is balance. Maybe hopefully we'll see a lot of companies go to where you don't have to be in the office 5 days a week. You can kind of pick your schedule. Maybe that's 2-3 days of, I think we're seeing now that you can do both and still be productive. So that's definitely one thing that I would like to see moving forward and just for me, realizing that I can too be productive at home and via Zoom as well.
Excellent. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Braden. Okay. Now I've got a very tough question. I think I'll give that to Craig. Okay, Craig, and Shelly, you can answer this one first, or you can answer this one as well. But Craig, let's have you take a swing at it first. So the sports business is going to recover. Let's just say we get the vaccine, early next year. It's going to come back in 2021. How do you envision that coming back? And do you envision it being what it was before? Or do you think it will be in a look different in the future?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. And obviously, I think if I had all of the answers, could make a nice business out of consulting for teams and companies as we kind of move into 2021. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a tough road for a lot of these, a lot of these organizations, teams, certainly, as they navigate how do we get fans back into stadiums safely, and what does that look like exactly? One of the things that you've seen the industry start to shift towards mobile payments in venue. I think we'll see more of that stuff and more of the teams adopting mobile payments, mobile tickets, ticketing. And so, before it was just maybe a few select markets and teams that were dabbling in this. I think you'll see that accelerated. Certainly on the corporate brand marketing side and the agency side, they're looking for ways, how do we engage with our consumers, right? If we can't do it physically in person, what does that look like going forward? How are we spending our marketing dollars to be able to reach the people that we want to reach? A lot of that is, I think, still unknown. You've seen a big shift to digital in the digital space. I think we'll continue to see that. But I still think there's something to this physical element that, once we're back to normal, companies are going to invest in that. They want that touch point directly with the consumer. And then from the kind of product brand side, I think by and large, they've adapted the best in our industry. They've made that pivot, and they've figured out, okay, what are areas that we need to double down in and invest in. And again, you've seen it on the digital side primarily. I think the companies that were strategic in investing in their direct to consumer business several years ago are benefiting from that. But that whole retail landscape is going to look a lot different. And now I'll turn it to Shelly. She probably could speak to that more than I could, but it's going to look different as we, kind of move into 21 and 22. Go ahead, Shelly.
Sure. Well, I might take a slightly different look at this. I'm sort of thinking about like programmatically, like how do we respond? But I would say that the sports product, so many things have been impacted. And from the sports product industry, I think that industry is learning what Alex has learned. This in-person thing is not that important for day-to-day activities. When it comes to creative direction, I'm going to agree with you there, Alex. That's a tough one if you can't actually be in the room to see the light to give direction on that. So, but I think that from a program point of view, that what we're seeing is that, one, there's a lot of demand for these skill sets that we're delivering, and that the industry knows that students who are educated in the business of product creation or the business of sport, as in Warsaw, have a perspective that's really valuable in these product companies and in these sporting organizations. So we've seen such great partnership there. So I think that I expect that will look a little bit different, but it continues to be pretty robust for us. And in fact, the number of small companies that we've been able to interact with in Portland has actually exploded over this period of time, because the big companies are trying to figure out how to stay a big company, and the small companies are scrappy and fighting for that opportunity, and they're doing great. So yeah, those are my thoughts.
Great, thanks, Shelly. Okay, I'm going to pitch it back to our students, and they don't know this question's coming, so they may need some time to think about it. So you're both at the University of Oregon, one in Eugene and one in Portland. This gives us a technology that allows us to connect Eugene and Portland, and a very easy way. We don't even have to get onto I-5 and drive 110 miles, right? And we can connect the two. What types of things would you in the future like to see from the University of Oregon that you may not be getting today? Maybe it's connected to Eugene and Portland, maybe it's connected to something else that you're like, okay, now this is our chance here at the University of Oregon to do this for our students. So Braden, I'm going to ask you first, and then Alex second.
Sure, that's a good question. I'll start by saying that part of our normal undergraduate club programming is these monthly trips to Portland. So it's a site visit that we do. We visit 3 sports companies in the area and like have lunch with an expert and that kind of thing. So we do routinely do site visits in Portland. But as for things that we could do in the future, I would say that I don't know that anybody really realized the potential for technology like Zoom. Like the MIT Sports Analytics Conference this year is going to be fully online. So now we're kind of realizing the potential for it just enables people to go to that kind of thing that maybe couldn't go beforehand. So potentially thinking about opportunities that transportation would have been a barrier for beforehand. Now that we know about all these technologies and the technology is improving, we can think about providing those kind of opportunities too that before might have been impossible.
Excellent. Yeah, I love that. Thanks, Braden. Alex.
So I'm thinking, since we are a sports product management program, I think it would be really awesome if we got to partner with a team on campus, and whatever team that is, but essentially just designing product for them. It would be really cool if we could really just kind of partner and really, I think it's also a way to kind of show who we are as a program to the masses, and again, connect us with the university. So like, I would definitely love the opportunity to, whether that's a sneaker or a jersey or something, to just really show what we're doing outside of our typical project, our team projects that we do within the program, that can just really highlight and just show other people and just, again, connect us to the university, which, you know, potentially connect us to other brands as well. So I think that would be something that would be really cool.
Excellent. Thanks, Alex. Okay, next question. Craig, I'm going to pick on you. We've got some big events coming up in Eugene. I'm reminded of the U.S. Track and Field Olympic Trials in 2021, the World Athletic Championships in 2022. How do you anticipate the Warsaw Sports Marketing Program being involved with those events?
Yeah, obviously it was among many of the bummers of 2020 was not getting to open the new Hayward Field. But we'll wait to do so here in 2021. Hopefully, fingers crossed that we'll have an Olympic trials here this summer. And then, as you mentioned, the World Athletics Championships in 2022. And those are huge events for, you know, our city, our state, most notably our university. It really puts us on the map on a global event stage. And for our program to have the ability to plug into an event like that, whether it's the trials or truly a global event the following year in 2022, you know, it's an awesome opportunity. And so we've already been involved with the local organizing committees. Students have been engaged in working with both groups for 2021 and 2022. And, you know, we took the opportunity to really think about, you know, how can we leverage as a program these events happening in our backyard, but also how can we play more in this Olympic space? We've got a lot of things coming down the pipeline here in the US. If you think about the LA Games in 2028, potential for another Winter Games in 2030, but really using this to kind of double down and say, you know, can we be the program that really specializes in the Olympic sports space? And so whether it's an NGB, the USOPC, you know, LA 2028, if there is a Salt Lake 2030, when they need to hire people, they look to the University of Oregon and the Warsaw Center for talent, because those students understand this space. So we've introduced a new class in the past year around the business of the Olympic Games. We had plans to take students to Tokyo last summer. Hopefully, if we're able to travel again, as Shelly mentioned, we'll have students on the ground in 2021. But really taking kind of what we're learning here in Eugene and taking just kind of the track and field, what's happening in the track and field world, and then expanding that as a program and thinking about how can we make an impact to the greater Olympic movement.
And I have to ask you, are you going to go for the marathon Olympic trials, Craig?
Yeah, that's been for me. Ellen mentioned this in the intro. I've been able to, you know, still continue my athletic career over the last 10 years, and I've run in 3 Olympic trials marathons. And we were actually the last sporting event to happen before COVID. We had the opportunity to have that race in Atlanta, Georgia. It was the last weekend of February. Ironically, I happened to share a ride in from the airport with the new CEO of the U.S. Olympic Committee, Sarah Hirschland, and we had been having this conversation on the way in of like, do you think it's going to, you know, this COVID thing is going to impact anything? And at the time, she was still pretty optimistic and upbeat, like, yeah, we may miss some events, but I think this thing's all going to happen. And sure enough, you know, things got sideways there over the next month. But yeah, so we've, to that point, the marathon team has been picked. They're gonna keep that team intact for next summer, which I think is definitely the right call. Those athletes earned it. So I will enjoy the trials from the stands and not having to feel the pressure of standing on the start line anymore. And I enjoy the track trials for those reasons.
Thanks, Craig. This is great. We're getting some questions coming in from all of you. Shelly, I'm going to do a two-part question with you. Question coming from our webinar participants are, what kinds of internship opportunities are normally obtained by SPM students? And then we have another one on asking, and I think I'll have both you and Craig answer this one, and that's what % of the people that are graduating from your programs are working in the industry? So Shelly.
Hey, thank you for asking that question, Eric. And here is my answer. As a sports product management program, we actually look to build a cohort of students that has a really balanced set of skills in it. So we like to see people with marketing backgrounds. As you mentioned in your question, you hear a lot about marketing. But we also want students with engineering backgrounds, with biomechanics, human physiology backgrounds, design backgrounds, because what we're trying to replicate, and what the industry asked us to do, was to replicate the product creation team experience, which is multifunctional, and for our students to have the experience of working in this multifunctional environment. So I think that Eric is particularly interested in product development, but I would say that the bulk of the students, if I had to put our students into a couple of categories, I would say product development, product line management, and marketing are probably our most popular functional areas for the students in our program. And for those interested in product development, a lot of those students go to overseas opportunities where they work in a factory environment, a factory that manufactures the product, which is absolutely incredible. People can work in the industry in the United States for decades and never have the opportunity to experience that side of the business in Asia, where those products are mass manufactured. So the fact that we have such wonderful partners in the industry on that side of the supply chain is incredible. And we have a number of students that are still living in Asia because they accepted full-time jobs in Asia after they graduated. So, and then we also have a large number of students that end up participating in product development or product line management opportunities on this side with the brand, on this side of the ocean. So yeah, that is definitely among the opportunities that we have.
Good. So Craig, why don't we have you answer the internship question, and then I'll go to the what % are in both of your programs are people in the industry. But Craig, we'll have you answer the internship one.
Yeah. So, having, at least on the MBA side, I can speak to that probably more so than on the undergrad side. The students that are enrolled in our 2-year program, are strongly encouraged to take that summer between their first and second year and do an internship. Many of the students that are coming into our program, similar to what Shelly was discussing, are pivoting, are doing pivots in their careers. And so maybe they've worked as an accountant in a previous role, or they, they're switching industries. And so that work experience and being able to tie some of their pre-MBA work experience to something that's, specific to this industry, I think is really valuable and really important for our students. And similarly, this summer, to what Alex experienced, it may not have looked the same, but certainly there were companies and partners within our kind of friend of the Warsaw Center who were great about giving projects to students to really sink their teeth into, to keep the momentum going here during COVID. And in terms of this number of students that are going on and graduating from our program and working in the industry, we actually did a kind of look back over 4 or 5 year cycle to kind of examine that, maybe about 10 months ago. And, it's probably in the 80 to 85% of people that have graduated from our program are working, we call either directly in sport or sport tangential. Sport tangential to us would mean, maybe you're on the corporate marketing team or partnership team at a company like an Intel, who Intel technically would not be considered, a company that operates mostly in the sports business. But there are roles within those companies that our alumni are taking. And so, and I think that's the true benefit of an MBA, right? Is that it allows you to, if you have opportunities within the sports industry to take advantage of those, certainly, but you're not necessarily beholden to that industry. We see our students first and foremost as MBA students. They specialize in sports business, but they are MBA students. And at the undergraduate level, they're business students first. Braden is going to graduate from the University of Oregon with a business degree. And then, he specializes and is interested in sport business. But, so that offers, I think, our students a fair amount of flexibility as they navigate their career post-graduation.
Excellent. Thank you, Craig. And a good distinction. So Shelly, how about your program? How many people are working in the industry? I know that you've only had 3 graduating classes, I think, so far.
We've had 4, and we're about to have our 5th, which will put us up just shy of 200 graduates. So when you're tracking statistics for that small number of students, way different than a 25-year-old program, but we are well over 90% of our graduates are working in the sports product industry. And we also, Craig, we call it sports product industry adjacent, because if you're working for a marketing agency that serves the sports product industry, we're going to call that still, the industry. So we've found, and also in our program. And so one of the questions that I've seen come by through in the Q&A is a little bit about, do you have to have a particular kind of background to enter into a program like this? Many of our students, particularly in our online program, have had careers in a different area. And this passion for sport and passion for gear or product has lived in their hearts, and they then find out there's a way they might be able to find their way to a role, a job that can help them live out their passion. So we do see so many different backgrounds come into the program, and each of those is really valuable. And you're right, Craig, it is tying, our job as a program is to help the student tie their previous experience to this industry and these functions that they have an interest in being in. And so that's a big part of our work with the students, is to help them do that.
Excellent. Thank you, Shelly. I also see in the Q&A that we've got some people that are interested in applying for both of your programs. And so if we can put a link into the chat for the Lundquist College of Business, you'll be able to find both of our programs there to apply. And I know that both programs would be thrilled to have more applicants. So we're getting close to the end here, and I thought it would be a great opportunity for us to just give each of the 4 of you an opportunity for some closing comments. Anything that you didn't get a chance to say, or anything that you'd like to say to our audience here tonight. So Alex, I'm going to pick you first.
I just want to say thank you again for having me. It's a great honor to just be here on behalf of the graduating class of 21. And it's just, I'm again super thankful for all the opportunities that came my way. Like I said, I could have just been at home all summer, but because of the program and its connectiveness with different brands and companies within the industry, I had the opportunity to really do a lot and really learn a lot and apply what I was learning throughout my time within the program, and just really kind of take it to the next level. So I'm super appreciative, and I'm excited for the next steps, and I'm excited for March to come. I'm very optimistic of, securing a role despite what's going on. And I think that just goes back to the program and our professors and staff willingness to sort of help us and do as much as they can to connect us and really uplift us. So I would say that's probably the best thing about the program, is just the willingness of everyone within the program to really just to do just about whatever they can to make sure that we get ahead. So I'm really super thankful and appreciative for that.
Great, thank you, Alex. Braden.
Sure, thank you. I will just say that the fact that not only like have we gotten through this time, but we're thriving in it and taking advantage of all the wild things that are happening right now, that's kind of proved to me that the University of Oregon and Warsaw specifically is like where I'm meant to be right now. I'm not sure, what the audience necessarily out there is, whether you're prospective students or who you might be, but it's really an incredible center. And yeah, that's all. It's incredible.
Braden, thank you. Craig.
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned this, I think it was in my intro, but I'm grateful that I get to work with students like Braden. Alex is a great testimony to what happens when you work hard and you put yourself in a good position, and all of a sudden 3 internships fall on your lap during the COVID summer. And I think that's what inspires me to go to work every day. Well, when we could actually go to work. If not, I would get up and walk from my bedroom right now. But I miss that. I miss going into the classroom and being able to feed off the energy of the college student environment. The students that we work with, they just have big, crazy ideas, and that the industry is going to be in good hands if we just get them there, and find, if we can find them roles in the industry that the entire industry will be better off for it. And we've been able to take this moment here of the last 8 months of COVID and really benefit from the energy and the ideas from our students. We, as a program, hosted a virtual WNBA draft party last spring. It was very early on when everything first shifted, out of in-person to virtual, and the whole draft, they were trying to figure out how are they going to do the draft on a virtual setting. And we had students that wanted to kind of pull together this whole production around hosting a virtual draft party, because they felt, I think, they felt for the Oregon women's team who got their run kind of just taken out from underneath them. And so they were able to really pull together a great lineup of speakers. We had the head of basketball operations for USA Basketball, the head of sport marketing for basketball for Adidas. Kelly Graves and Ruthie joined us. And it was just fun to see something get pulled together like that. And I think there's opportunities going forward for us as a program, SPM, I'm sure in the same way, to think about how we leverage technology to be a part of the sport business conversation, whether or not we can do it in person, or if we have events in our backyard, like the trials and the world championship, or not, we can do things virtually. So excited about the future, and hopeful we'll be able to do it together in person soon.
Excellent, thank you, Craig. And Shelly.
Thank you. Well, these other people have had some great things to say, but I guess I'll just sort of double down on my final words are: when the world shut down, it also opened up, because some of the limitations that I considered just normal, like who teaches a course, it's got to be someone who lives in Portland. No, it doesn't. It doesn't even have to be someone who lives in the United States. So a number of just of things that were true suddenly were not limiting factors for us any longer. So like Craig mentioned, for Alex's class, we had several sessions with alumni of the program who live elsewhere in the world, elsewhere in the country, elsewhere in the world, and that we were able, instead of having a networking event where everyone came together into our building, we had a virtual event where they came together from wherever they were in the world to talk with our current students. And it meant everything in the world to us as a program that they would invest that time for our current students, to encourage them and to help them understand what the opportunities are out there. And it also just reaffirmed for me and the rest of our staff and faculty that our previous ideas about limitations were a little bit old-fashioned. So we've joked many times that we got dragged kicking and screaming into the 21st century by this COVID, but it actually has benefited us in a lot of ways that I'm very grateful for. Not gonna lie, I miss my students so much. And I'm going to get through that without crying tonight. Yay. But I haven't at other times. That it really sucks to not see people in person. So I look forward to a future in which we have that opportunity to be in person, but we remember that we're not limited by proximity anymore. We're just not.
Excellent. Thank you, Shelly. And thank you to our 4 amazing panelists. Thanks for being with us tonight. And from myself and our 4 panelists, we'd like to thank all of you for spending this evening with us. We could not have done this without the support of Wendy, Anne, Sarah, and Jeff, who perfectly executed tonight. But the work that we're doing here at the University of Oregon is really made possible because of the generosity of all of you. So thank you for your love, thank you for your support, and thank you for your time. And from the bottom of our duck hearts, we thank you and good night.